Okay, we are reconvening from executive session, and we do have some action to follow. We're hiring some new principals today. And first on the list, on the agenda, is Jones Elementary. Dr. Crawford.
We're excited to provide a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for Ms. Nicole Robinson, who is a Tyler ISD product. Her resume rose through the ranks, I think, from a long-term sub all the way to today of actually being brought forth to y'all for consideration to be principal at Jones Elementary School. We're very excited about this transition from Dr. Crane to Ms. Robinson. Kudos to Dr. Crane for her accolades. Jones is in really good shape right now. We've got a rock star that we think we're going to be able to hand the baton to in Ms. Robinson.
Awesome. Exciting news. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on that item.
I move that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Robinson.
I want to say thank you, President Washman, our esteemed Board of Trustees, and Dr. Crawford for entrusting me with this incredible opportunity. As a proud alumni of Peete Wildcats, Stewart Gophers, and Tyler High, I am very honored to serve and give back to the community that has poured so much into me. My family here, we're longtime residents of Tyler. I have them here with me today. My parents, my husband's parents, Mr. William Robinson, my husband, and our three beautiful children, Travion, Kason, and Khalees. There are also products of Tyler ISD. I have one that will be attending Legacy as a freshman in the fall, and then my Caldwell star, she'll be a fourth grader at Caldwell. Thank you all for being here, for supporting me through this journey. You all are my rock and my source of strength. All of my kids here, I love them. I'm excited. I'm ready to get to work at Jones and love on them just as much as I love my own babies. Tyler ISD holds a special place in my heart. I've journeyed from student to teacher to now humbly as the principal of Jones Elementary School. I've had the pleasure of being a part of the Tyler ISD Team 1 and the Principal Ready Pipeline Program. This district is dedicated to growing and nurturing its own, and I thank you for believing in me. I'm excited to get to know the Jones family, and I'm just committed to continuing the success established by Dr. Crane. With my deepest gratitude, thank you, and I'm just ready to get started.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving down the list, we have Orr Elementary. Dr. Crawford.
Absolutely. Can't say enough about this next recommendation. He has done a great job. We stole him away from a neighboring district where he was an elementary teacher. Then he went over to Moore Middle School. I believe, is that where you met your wife, Mr. Harbor?
Well, Mr. Lane was our middle school principal.
Okay, there you go. Mr. Lane's, he's the love connector. There you go. But everything goes through Claude Lane, right? The Claude father. We were excited about Mr. Harbor here. We worked at an elementary school as an elementary teacher prior to coming to Tyler ISD. Then he was a teacher at Moore Middle School. Then he rose to the ranks of administrator at Moore. And then the last 4 years, he's been serving as the Dean of Instruction at Tyler High School under the tutelage of Mr. Lane. We're excited about Nathan Harbor. He's gone through the Tyler Ready Principal Program. His beautiful wife and daughter are here today along with his father, and that's our recommendation for principal at Orr Elementary School.
Great. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on that item.
Okay. I move that we accept the recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Harbor.
Thank you, President Washman and Board of Trustees. I'm honored for this recommendation. Dr. Crawford, I appreciate the opportunity as well. To my wife, Olivia, we started this journey 9 years ago. You helped me decorate my classroom for the first time, so I wasn't that lame elementary teacher that didn't have a theme in their classroom. She's been a supporter of me through all these years, and just happy that I get to continue on this journey with her. And our lovely daughter, Nora, she's just has as much personality as I do, but is as smart as her mom, which is probably a good thing. So to my dad, who's sitting here beside my wife, took some convincing to tell him that I wanted to be an educator. Thankfully, as I told the interview committee, I wasn't sitting beside him when I told him I wasn't going to try and be an engineer anymore. I was going to be a teacher. But now he's one of my biggest supporters and knows my passion for the work that we do in education. And I will be forever grateful to Claude Lane, the Claude Father, as he's often referred to. He was the guy who gave me a shot even before I was technically even hired at Moore. He started having me work on administrative things as part of like a summer intern project before I even started teaching there, and just I will be forever grateful that he gave me my first shot to be an administrator. And I will probably say that about you, Dr. Crawford, for giving me the first chance to be a principal here in Tyler ISD. Over my time at Tyler High School, I've loved serving the families, the students, the community, the teachers. But over these past 4 years, I've witnessed firsthand some of the challenges students face from a literacy standpoint. And so I'm excited to get back to essentially my roots in education at the elementary level, with a focus on literacy, aiming to proactively address and prevent some of those challenges so our middle schools and high schools can excel as well. So super excited for that. I know I see some of the OR people here. I'm excited to work with y'all and get started in the process. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes.
Washburn, a little known fact about Mr. Harbor, he has actually coached some of our Tyler ISD basketball league teams without his own kid playing. So that's been a little hobby of his.
Well, what I love about both of these hires is, we always tell Dr. Crawford, if there's any way to get people that are from Tyler or that love Tyler to be principals, it's so good and healthy. And Nicole, I've hung out and yelled at referees with you for a long time, watching our sons play basketball together. And then Coach Harbor, I call you Coach because, Jermaine, my mentee, he's been with you since Moore. And so just seeing both of y'all interact with the community, it means so much. And I look forward to watching both of you do great things over there. So congrats once again. Now, we do have a rest of a meeting to get on with. So do we have any public participation today? No public participation. So next on the agenda, and if y'all don't want to stay for it, I understand. If y'all want to congratulate each other out in the hallway, feel free. I can give you a minute to move out if you want. Just don't feel awkward about it at all. But we're going to gear up the budget proposal next.
Why'd y'all get up so quick?
Yeah, I gave you a shot, so take it. Andy, blue shirt, khaki shorts, he'll be the quarterback for Legacy for their class. He's a pretty good athlete. Really good basketball player. Yeah. Okay, we have a budget proposal for the 2024 and 2025 school year.
Coming to the presentation table is our Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations, no longer the CFO. We've got another one of those over there. Well, June 1 or July 1. Is Tasha Bjork. We have some boilerplate items, annual items that we've got to go through in regards to the preparation for the 24-25 fiscal year budget.
I guess they didn't want to stick around for this interesting budget presentation. Okay, this is the budget presentation for next year, 24-25, and we're in the second year of the biennium, so we have more knowns this year. We don't have to worry about what's going to happen. We really know what's going on. So to start off, our sources of revenue are state, 46%, our tax revenues, 50%, and the SARS and federal revenue, 1%, and other miscellaneous, 2.6. That's pretty consistent, but we're seeing a drop in local property tax, and I'll get to that slide in a little bit. The state formula revenue is decreasing for this next year. We have our ADA has been a little better, so we're gonna have $1.2 million increase in state funding for that. But our local share, which is based on current year property tax values, that's gonna go up $6.1 million. So therefore, our state revenue will go down that. So we have a net decrease of about $5 million in state formula revenue. As far as property taxes, right now the values are up 13%. I'm sure after the appeal process and all that, it'll probably settle somewhere around 10 to 11%. But we will have a decrease in the M&O tax rate from 69.53 to 66.69. And that is the lowest tax rate that any school district can be at, the 0.669. This is the first time we've met the bottom. And that's because our values continue to rise.
Ms. Bjork, just for clarification, that's the lowest tax rate a school district can be at?
Right, we have the 5 golden pennies, but yes, all the school districts have the 5 golden pennies. So this is the minimum.
This is the minimum tax rate that a district like Tyler ISD can be at. Okay, I just
in
want to
the
make sure
maintenance and
we were repeating that, emphasizing that. Okay.
So can we go lower?
No.
Oh, we can't go any
If
lower.
you go lower, you lose your golden pennies, and those are worth like $9 million.
More
to
than
us.
a penny.
Right.
Golden.
So you don't want to lose those. But anyway, even though our values have gone up, we can only recognize around 2.5% as far as the tax increase. So, but taxes are still going to go up 7.6 million. Now here's where we are taking a hit, which we would be real well off if we didn't have all this going on. But our SARS federal revenue, which we've talked about that before, it's going to decrease 2.1 million from what we've been accustomed to. And then we have been receiving indirect cost reimbursement in the general fund from ESSER, and all those grants end this year. And so that was around 1.8 million a year. So that's a net decrease of $4 million. Now, I knew the ESSER was going to come, but if the SARS would have been nice to stay the same. So other revenue, we have our pre-K tuition, interest income is an increase from what we budgeted last year. Rental income, miscellaneous, that's a small increase, around 0.78 million. But when you round it all off, we're almost even with last year's budget. We have a little decrease, 533,000. On the expenditure side, for payroll and benefits, the teachers and RNs will still receive their step pay increase. You remember last year we have the 5-year bands where 0 beginning, then 1 to 5, 6 to 10, they will still get their increase if they move up a band. We had to do a few salary adjustments for new Fair Labor Standards Act standards where they've raised the minimum that you can pay professionals. It's kind of like hourly, but now they've raised it for professionals that are not teachers. And so that, we have some small increases there, and then we had a few positions that we had to do market adjustments on because they were well below market. We had to move some special ed classroom positions to general fund that we had added, and that was around $375,000. That is all that we ended up having to take in from ESSER. We effectively were able to dissolve all the positions and everything. So
Tasha, let's pause right there just for a second. So a lot of the stuff you're hearing from other districts across the state is that they did not manage their ESSER windfall quite as effectively as we did. You're talking about people having to close schools, cutting tremendous amounts of staff, and we're not having to do that. Is that what you're saying?
right, like some schools did salary increases in ESSER, whereas what we did were stipends, retention stipends, so that we did not have to live with that. And positions that we added were positions that we could not have anymore.
And these special ed positions that you're referring to is not just because we feel like we just want more staff. It's because of the increase in the amount of students that we're having to serve now under special education after the
Yes.
state got popped by the feds for having a cap.
Right.
Okay.
And most of these, I think it was 2 teachers and the rest are instructional aides, actually. So that's what a lot of that is. Tim Loper did a maintenance and custodial staff restructure, and that was a decrease in staff. We decreased middle school teachers, 8 of them, due to overages. And then we did some salary reset from last year. You know, when I bring this to y'all, we have not been able to figure out, okay, what's the exact salary budget gonna be? But some of this is sub-expense and some is our stipend expense. And one thing about sub-expense, I'm decreasing it around $250,000. And I truly believe that is due to our TIA, because one of the things that they have to do is be at school. They can't have a certain number of absences. And even the teachers that are not master teachers or whatever, for them to receive some, they have an attendance requirement also. So I feel like that's why sub-expense, we were able to decrease that. And then we also had a decrease in workers' comp and unemployment. So that's a net decrease of around $835. And I have details in the board packet that I'll go over in a minute. As far as instructional and instructional support, the campus allotments increased because our enrollment went up. We are no longer doing the summer program with the Mentoring Alliance. That was $500,000.
We're doing the summer program,
But
Mentoring
not
Alliance,
the
but our
one-
contribution,
not Bolter.
right, and our contribution. And we've gone to super sites, one at Moore and one at Three Lakes.
We're still doing the program, just not the one where we were providing all the funding and no tuition. And then there was a small decrease in our tuition for the Regional Day School for the Deaf. So that's a decrease of $523,000. And then these are the departmental and operating, and you can just go through there. The biggest ones are, we had an increase in utilities, and then property and casualty, I'm not sure yet. I put $500,000, it could be more. We won't know that till probably early August, so I'm gonna have to wait on that, but I do know it will go up. I'm just not sure how much. And so all those increases are $825,000. So we have a balanced budget, luckily. At least probably 40 to 50% of school districts are not able to do a balanced budget for this next year. If you want to go into the agenda, I think it's on page 7, Joseph. The first page just summarizes all the salary expense, and we're generally like 84% salaries. And then our campus budgets and our departmental and operating budgets. And then our 3 cents to the preventive maintenance fund has gotten up to be like 3.74 million. And that's based on what our values do. So that continues to go up. The next page is just our overtime and extra time, no changes there. The next 2 pages are our campus allotments and how much each school receives to just manage their campus. We pay for big items, but this is just to manage their campus. And then if you go to the page with the departments, you can see in the middle most of them stayed the same, but you can tell if you get to the second page of that where some of the changes are. We had technology contracts that increased, so we had to do those little increases. And the last page of the departments are the reductions. And then I did 250 for property and casualty and 250 for utilities. We are taking on the crossing guards from City of Tyler, so that was redirected to salaries. That 250,000 was redirected to salaries and expenses that will incur for taking on the crossing guards. The next page is just our operating revenue. So you can see kind of what each item is, and at the bottom, the breakout between local, state, and federal. And the next page I wanted to go over is a calculation of our levy. As you'll see at the top, we have a 13% increase, and so our tax rate will be set at 0.6669. But if you'll look at the INS, interest and sinking to pay our debt, we are going to be able to decrease that also, and early pay probably $6 million, which you'll be seeing that in August. We'll be bringing an early pay to you. And so our total rate will be 91 cents projected. I mean, it could change a little based on the collections. And so that's a decrease of 5 cents in our tax rate for 24-25. And then the next page is just a summary of everything I went through on increases and decreases, but you can actually see the amount of what the decreases and increases are. One thing I wanted to point out is our tax rate has gone down, our levy has decreased, and so our contract with the appraisal district, we're still the highest. We pay the most money to the appraisal district, but it's continuing to go down, and that is going down $190,000 for next year, which was very helpful. We were looking for anything that we could find to get, and so that came off. So anyway, that's just a summary of all the increases and decreases. It'll change a little bit. I've had some things come up where I'll tweak it. So in August, you'll have another presentation, which will be the final or close to the final at the August board workshop. Any questions?
Any questions, board, or comments?
Couple of questions in regards to the stipend, in regards to the ESSA funds and how we've taken care of our teachers in the past 3 years, I guess. What is the plan going forward? Do we have a plan that we can compensate our teachers in some form or fashion other than what we did with the ESSA fund?
Well, the teachers, if they move their salary, if they move to a new 5-year band, they are going to get the increase.
Okay,
They will get an increase. That is, the teacher step pay increases, if you look on this last sheet, are $975,000 estimated. So teachers will get, some of the teachers will get salary increases.
some of them,
Yes.
but all of them were getting that.
But this
in ESSA,
past year,
right.
they got huge increases.
Right, okay.
Because they moved up to a new band.
Just to refresh everybody's memory, the bands that we have now, the 0 year, then the 1 through 5, then the 6 through 10, and so on, those increases that were provided from the board, was that last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
It was last year. Or what were the percentages that that they got last year, Lance? You'd had that kind of, some of them received 11% increases to go into, to jump into those bands. So an 11% increase in 1 year, if you divide that into 2 years, and you divide that into 3 years, you divide that into 4 years, or what you're normally getting. So they got a huge bump last year when we kind of restructured how we did that.
Right, and they got it all at once versus having to wait each year.
That's exactly right. The other thing that we could do is the potential, while we're awaiting some of the work to be done in Austin, is that we might be able to squeeze something to be announced at a later date.
Okay. Well, I'm just being realistic, and making sure that they hear you in relation to why they got so much the past 3 years as opposed to what we're having to do right now.
Right.
Going back to our old system of how we, compensate them for their work, and not thinking that was something that was going to be around forever. And fortunately, we didn't plan it into our budget that way, which was a good thing, so that our teachers understand that was an extra bonus due to a bad situation we went through, but it was extra and not the
That's right.
standard. Okay.
Okay?
And I had one other question regarding the Mentoring Alliance. The relationship between the Mentoring Alliance and TISD is somewhat changed. Now, you said that we were $500,000 budgeted for that in the past, so what are we doing this time?
Well, in the past, we had spots for, I think it was 393 children
Right,
that they did not have to pay tuition.
okay,
We
right,
paid it.
okay,
But it was at Bolter, right?
Also provided transportation,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
We did
And
not
so-
fill those spots. We didn't have enough folks
Right.
that accessed those spots.
So now Mentoring Alliance shoulders all the expense. We pay the,
As they did 3 or 4 years
right,
ago.
right.
A lot of this, because the statute was changed in Austin legislature, I don't remember which ones, a while back, Matt Schaefer could tell you. He knows, he circles it on his calendar, to where you could do that. Now, then fast forward to last year's legislative session to where there were no additional revenue provided to school systems. We had to go through, and that was just one of the cuts that we wind up having to make so that we could fund our school system, keep up with our compensation packages, and then consider possible, some type of incentive to be announced at a later date to get to this budget.
it'd be before this budget, hopefully.
Correct.
Right.
But that's why there's that gap in there. And that's, we had to make some decisions in order to not go into the hole, and to not cut a bunch of staff and to keep up with our 22-to-1 along with some other secondary stuff as well. Dr. Dropel, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, the folks at Mentoring Alliance have worked with a lot of their donors to help offset some of the costs. So the kids that we targeted at the Bolter campus were our J-Pro, Dixie, Griffin. And so Mentoring Alliance is offering the program to those kids for $19 for a week. So the Mentoring Alliance has done a great deal of fundraising on their side to ensure that our kids at our highest needs that were served in this area, they're getting that at a very, very affordable cost of $19.
Yeah, and I think that if there's work done in this next legislative session, I said if, because there's still going to be a whole lot of strings attached to whatever revenues schools may get. Of course, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter that even some of our own legislators are talking about starve the schools, starve them. We'll see what happens on that. And if revenue does come back up to the levels that we'd like, instead of being funded by what levels at 2019, I think that's the common year that's been thrown around, then we can reconsider some of these other things that we've had to make some cuts on. Now, I'll tell you this, if we go through the legislative session next year and there's not an increase in the schools and our values, all the stuff that goes into the gumbo of making what our revenue looks like, you may have to make some more draconian, more drastic considerations as we go forward, not just, trying to figure out another way to do a summer program with MA. So that's where that was. I had my notes on there in regard to that. Another thing that we had to consider to get to this, not just on the MA, the Mentoring Alliance stuff, but whenever the board decided to approve their administrative recommendation to actually go into the state's healthcare plan. Remember what we were paying to make us whole on that, past what the employee premiums were. It was getting so expensive. What was the last year and then this year?
7 million, and we're on track for that and maybe a little more. for
Yeah, so that would be another dip into the revenue bucket to keep us that way if we wouldn't have made that switch. So, not to be doom and gloom on the budget. In fact, Tasha, I think you've done an incredible job of getting us to where we are today so that we're not having to talk about some of the other things that we've done. Now, we've done some work prior to right size our school system. We went down from 6 middle schools to 4 middle schools over time. That's helped us as well. There's some other things that we can probably go and do with facilities. The board knows about some of our administrative facility planning that we've got that we could probably go and look for some more wins there, but that'll take some time to probably be realized as well. So it's a good budget. Did have to make some decisions on Mentoring Alliance and our healthcare plan to get us here as well.
Very good. Well, thank you for the update.
Good questions, Mr. Newsom. I appreciate you bringing those up.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? We appreciate you. Tasha, thank you. Okay.
Before moving on, how much longer do we have Tasha on a regular basis? How much longer do we have her on a regular basis?
December.
Okay.
Year of Tasha. The year of Tasha's farewell.
Okay. Gifted and talented update.
GT update coming your way per statute. So this is an annual presentation of our gifted and talented program. Dr. Norman?
Good morning, President Washman, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Crawford. This update will serve as your annual update for GT. Before we start, though, I want to just introduce Raina Patton. So Raina was our GT lead last year, but when Gretchen retired in February, she slid into that spot, and so now she is facilitating programs. And so she will not only oversee GT, but also pre-K this next year. Okay, so before we get started, I want us to revisit the state definition of gifted and talented. And so a lot of people assume that, okay, you're an A student, you turn in your work on time, that you might be gifted and talented. And you might be, but also we know that gifted learners, they have different services that we provide that we're required by the state to provide, but often it's because they look at the world differently. And they either have an intellectual, creative, or artistic capacity that we need to strive to meet their needs. And so that is why we have our Gifted and Talented program. So for today's update, I'm going to go through the presentation and just go through each of the domains that we're required to go through as a state requirement. And so we will first start with fidelity of services. So this is the first domain, and this year for identification, we continue to expand and increase identification for our students. This is the second consecutive year that we have had every second grader tested with our universal screener. And this process also provides us norming data at the district and campus level for identification based on the state definition of giftedness. So the next domain is student assessment. We want to make sure that there are multiple pathways for students to be identified as gifted and talented. Of course, I just shared that we have our second grade universal screener, but the identification process starts before that. And that comes through parent, through teacher recommendations and referrals. And so we've worked really hard to make sure that all of our campuses are trained in this process. Something that we also changed this year that we're seeing great success with is that we used to have just one testing window throughout the school year. We now can test and place students throughout the entire school year, and that is because of Ms. Patton's leadership in that as well. Okay, what you're going to see here is our identification based off of our GT population by race. We are looking at a continued partnership with our principals, with our teachers, and through our PLCs on GT look-fors and to increase referrals for our underrepresented and under-identified student populations. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share a pilot that we did this year that we're seeing great success for that. So the next domain is service design. I want to make note that this is a research-based learning experience where students engage in this opportunity. They start in September. Many of you as board members either saw pictures on Facebook, on social media, or maybe you've attended a GT Expo. But students work year-long on their project, and then we had our GT Expo in April for Gifted and Talented Awareness Week. I'd also like to highlight here that with an increase in our emergent bilingual and dual language learners, for the first time ever, we had a bilingual GT teacher this year. And she was able to deliver content in both English and Spanish, and students were able to respond and create their project in English and or Spanish. These students who would not have been identified previously can now receive GT services that continue to meet their academic needs, providing weekly GT services in shorter service times. So this was a great addition to our team this year. And we're very grateful for that opportunity. So for curriculum and instruction, in this domain, our goal is always to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum, whether it's a core classroom with Tier 1 instruction or for GT. But with GT, our curriculum is different in that it has to be, they have different pacing, we look at depth, we look at complexity. And so our GT teachers engage in weekly PLCs, just like our other teachers, and they plan activities in Canvas to ensure alignment and rigor for each classroom that we're servicing GT students. Each classroom across the district then has access to the same activities and a TEKS-based content. Okay, so for professional development, every core teacher, along with our administrators and counselors, are required to get so many hours in professional development in GT. So initially, the initial 30 hours is your first year, and you have to get 30 hours, and there's different strands for Gifted and Talented that you go through those modules. After that, you're required to have a 6-hour update. So this is not only our GT teachers at the elementary schools that are providing services, but all of our secondary and elementary core teachers that are required to get these hours, okay? This is important because in Tyler ISD, even though we have at the elementary level, we have a model where we pull out our GT students to provide services. They then go back to the classroom, and we have to be able to differentiate and meet their needs. At the secondary level, our model is that they have access to advanced pathways in addition to their teachers being trained and gifted and talented. So we also provide multiple formats of in-house PD. We have in-person, blended learning, Canvas course, and then of course, Ms. Patton has done a fantastic job this year of finding different options. And you can see here that to date with compliance, the year prior we had 46% completion. We weren't happy with that, but because of her working hard to partner with campuses, provide different sessions and opportunities for our teachers and our administrators, we are at 70% this year. And we expect that to go up after the summer as well. Okay, and then our last domain is community and family involvement. Like I mentioned earlier, we have our project requirements from TEA and we have the GT Expo. We will continue to work with campus administration to showcase student products during campus events for family and community engagement. This includes academic and cultural events at the campus level. Okay, so I want to close out with, I mentioned earlier what we're doing to identify students, gifted and talented students, underrepresented populations and under-identified. And so if you look here, this chart is what we called the pilot this year. It was called Kindergarten Planned Learning Experience. And so our pilot elementary campuses, you can see that last year we did not have this, and we had 66 referrals and only 22 students qualified. This year, I'm excited to share the success of this pilot, that we had 140 referrals and we had qualified 43 students from this pilot. I'm now going to hand the mic over to Ms. Patton, who's going to share with you exactly what this looks like for our students.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would just like to share a little bit about our pilot program. We're very excited. We noticed there was a huge need at certain campuses. And so we really wanted to base this on a literacy program. So we have a GT teacher that goes in, partners with the kindergarten classroom teacher. They go in for 5 sessions, 30 minutes a week, and they provide a planned learning experience. So it's a book that they read, and then they have a task. The students have a performance task to complete afterwards. And during that time, they partner with the teacher. The teacher is looking for certain characteristics that might be indicative to giftedness. And then the teacher and the GT teacher will come together, discuss, and refer certain students. And in the last session, the GT teacher comes in and does a familiarity test with the students to kind of help them prepare to take the GT assessment. And we have found that we've worked really well with the campuses. The campuses are very excited. Every pilot campus has asked us to return. Plus, we will be able to add additional campuses this coming year. And our goal is to be in, every campus that we see a need, in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Ms. Patton. And then here are just some pictures to showcase this year. It's been a great year with gifted and talented programming. Mr. Martinez, recently you shared your experience as a gifted and talented student and the impact it had on you. And so the fact that not only do we provide programming for our students, but it's quality programming. And I'm excited to see what we're going to be able to do as we continue to try to remove barriers and support our students in this. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Couple of comments in regards to it. I'm very pleased with the gifted and talented and the move. I think the past couple of years that you're doing all second grade individuals, that's great, because I think that somehow we were possibly missing some. So I think that that's great. We'll be able to capture all of those that have potential, that want to participate in the program. I think that's wonderful. Love pilot programs. I think that that's pilot program, and pilot programs are what allow you to discover areas of improvement, to get beyond the norm. And I love pilot programs in the aspect of that. You're looking at something outside the box, so to speak, to develop the program. I think that's good. I compliment you on that. I think that that's going to definitely make a difference in the number of qualified individuals that we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the report. I'm a fan. Love it. Love the work y'all are doing. And yeah, I'm excited to see the growth. That's really, really fun, really exciting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, some kids really do crave and need a deviation from, you know, what's just given, and it always looks different, you know, but I have fond memories of all of the GT stuff that we did, the critical thinking that just, you know, and honestly, it allowed for kind of an expression of thought, and that's so important. So keep up the good work. We appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we have a CLIM class and iReady update.
Dr. Cassandra Chapa will provide the board the spring CLIM class and iReady update. Dr. Chapa?
Yes, so I'm excited to be able to give you a very comprehensive look about what we've been doing all school year. So President Washman, Board of Trustees, Dr. Crawford, you know, hold on to your hats because this is some good stuff right here.
iReady.
Yeah, so we're going to start off, again, today's look is really comprehensive of what we've been doing from pre-K to 8th grade. And so we're going to start off with pre-K and Head Start and their CLI Engage, which we also call Circle. And so we assess math, reading, social and emotional, and writing through this. It is administered one-on-one with a teacher through iPad and face-to-face interactions, as well as rubrics that are completed by the teacher. And so the data that you will be looking at is not growth as in the average of individual student growth, but we're looking at it as growing from at benchmark at beginning of the year to the percent of students that are benchmark at the end of the year. So through this, we call it 3 waves of data, beginning of year, middle of year, end of year. At the end of year, we see some significant increases in our rapid letter naming, rapid vocabulary, and phonological awareness and math. Our social and emotional and early writing, it says that there's that dip in difference, but they are actually the hardest to grow for a student. So again, these percentages don't capture all the growth that students have. It's purely who's at benchmark at the end of the year and who's not. And so having 85% of our students at benchmark, which means they are on track for kindergarten readiness at the end of year through early writing is pretty significant. As we look at the different programs that we offer for our early childhood, we see some, again, great growth through our non-tuition pre-K and our Head Start. Again, all of this is done through who is at benchmark and who is on track. So again, we see some great growth with us being very intentional through our rapid letter naming and rapid vocabulary. One of the pieces that we have incorporated is making our pre-K and Head Start teachers eligible for teacher incentive allotment, which means that they've really put some focus on student growth through their small groups. And here we differentiate between demographics. For our Hispanic students, this does include Spanish testing. And so we do see some differences through the Spanish test and English test, but there again is some great growth. One of the things that we are planning to do to really kind of be even more intentional in terms of our early literacy in math is we have looked at our scope and sequence of the curriculum. We want to make sure that we're being able to expose students to all of the letters in the alphabet prior to kindergarten, even though that's not a state requirement. So we're really digging deeper into our curriculum and how we're able to support our teachers in progress monitoring, where we're not really seeing a lot of opportunities through CLI Engage currently. But again, this is some really wonderful things to see that, over 76% of our African American students are going to be, on track to enter kindergarten. So now we'll move into our kinder through second grade through M-Class Amplify. This is part of our House Bill 3 requirements, in which we are assessing whether students are reaching a benchmark by reading skills, and then how they perform differently on certain reading skills. And so this is assessed one-on-one with a teacher 3 times per year. Kindergarten through second grade do see different skills at each of those levels, and we'll break that down here in a second. So again, the benchmark that are shown here is not a full picture of how much students grew throughout the year. It is utilizing the normed data on what is considered at benchmark or on track. But we see some really great things happening in kindergarten. And all the percent changes that you see here, we've been using this program for about 4 years. This is the highest growth marks we've seen for each of these grade levels to be at benchmark by end of year. So, it's, of course, we would love to see 100% of our students at benchmark at the end of the year, but this is significant growth with some of the progress monitoring strategies that we've provided teachers throughout this year. As we look through each of the grade levels through demographics, again, we're seeing significant growth from beginning of year to end of year. I attribute this to our diligence from our teachers in making sure that we're doing our phonics instruction every day. That was really a non-negotiable from our campuses to ensure that we weren't skipping those phonics routines. Even if a teacher had to be absent, we were very, very purposeful in how they came back and made sure that they taught that lesson and recovered that lesson. Furthermore, our assessments and accountability department did a really great job in providing us compelling scoreboards this year to make sure that if students came in well below or below benchmark at the beginning of the year, that they were receiving progress monitoring at least every 3 weeks to ensure that they were growing in their certain skills. So speaking of those skills, we see here how those are broken down by each grade level. And again, the growth that we see in kinder and first in terms of letter naming and phonemic awareness is by far the best that we've done in previous years. Each of those skills to create a composite score for a student are weighted a little bit differently. So you might see significant growth in letter sounds and or phonemic awareness because those are the heavy early reading foundations that we're looking for to make sure that students have those skills to be able to decode and get to reading fluency by second grade. And so as we leave kinder through second, we are coming to iReady. iReady is used for kinder through 8th grade in math and reading. This is our first year utilizing iReady as the diagnostic. And so we don't have cohort data to be able to show you. Again, iReady is used in an individualized setting for a student through the computer. And then they also provide pathways for each student so that they can continue to work on personalized learning throughout the school year. So here we see the number of students that made at least 1 full year worth of progress. So we are not showing you again, we don't have enough data yet to really correlate to proficiency standards, but we are demonstrating where students started at the beginning of the year and ensuring that they're making a year's worth full of growth through this program by the end of the year. There is what is called typical growth through iReady, which is essentially where a student is comparative to other students where they are throughout the year. we've really pushed our campuses to get to what iReady calls stretch growth. So that means if we're really wanting to close gap with students who are behind when they come into a grade level, we really have to hit that stretch growth consistently in order to catch students up. And that is a significant amount over a year's worth of growth. So again, these numbers don't show the complete amount that our students may have grown throughout the year, but it is significant to note that if we utilize our teacher incentive allotment, the average that a teacher would need to get to the recognized level, which is our lowest designation, is 55%. So as we look at getting to that second level for a master teacher designation, we're looking for 60%. So as you can see with these averages, we are getting to those levels of growth where we are seeing those master and recognized teachers, which is pretty significant for where we want to be with our teacher incentive allotment and ensuring that students are growing every year. As we look at the number of students who have made growth throughout the year through demographics, we see some consistencies with what we see through the grade levels of that 50 to 60% nature. Again, for reading and math, we want to get to that 100%, but as we learn more about the program, we learn more about how to use the personalized learning. And I think we had the conversation in the middle of the year, how do we make sure that we help our teachers really get the best use of this product so that we can hit every student, as well as learn from its suggestions about skills that we implement face-to-face with students in our small groups. Now, the really exciting stuff is the comparison data that we see between those that use iReady across the state and those that use iReady in comparison districts. So districts like us, similar demographics, similar size. iReady has masked some of that data, so I can't tell you exactly which districts. And the number of students that we're comparing varies by grade level, again, depending on their enrollment sizes. But we are outpacing the state and the district and the state and comparison districts by that end of year. So we are seeing where we are able to grow our students and have been using it pretty effectively, even though it being our first year. Something that iReady did not mask from our account manager was how impressed they were with our growth, especially in reading. So they made sure to reach out to Dr. Curitan and his staff as these end of year scores came in, speaking to how great the numbers looked, considering it was our first year and what they were seeing from the comparison districts.
That was the extra slide that was not included in your board packet. We didn't have the data in time. Thanks for getting that, Dr. Curitan.
And here we see the math comparison. So again, something that want to point out is generally we struggle in 7th and 8th grade math to kind of run a line with the state. It historically has been an area that we haven't seen apples to apples when we look at our counterparts. But this is a good place for our state comparison in terms of 7th grade math and 8th grade math.
Of course, this is also, as the STAR data trickles in, that is something that we're seeing is that we are closing the state gap, the gap between Tyler ISD and the state average. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing, I did not mention it with M-Class, is we had similar reports from our account manager of being, what they would consider kind of a model district of how well we've been progress monitoring. And that's something that, this team up here, as long with principal feedback, are going to continue to do. We have really found ways to support our teachers and making sure that they're implementing those phonics every day, that they're staying on pace with curriculum documents through our FCC. We are learning a lot about our new assessment in STAR and how that translates to what we do daily in the classroom. So we feel like we're moving in the right direction with this, and we know that there's more work to be done, but we feel really good about how well we've utilized these diagnostic tests to impact our daily instruction. All right, any questions?
Very good. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Of course, I have question. In regards to iReady, you said the individuals are on computer. Now, could you explain that? Are the students on the computer by themselves, or are they supervised on the computers, or?
Yes, they're supervised, but it is an individualized test. It's very similar to a STAR environment.
Okay.
So everyone is taking iReady at the same time while they're being monitored. The test might be taken over multiple days. It is an adaptive test. So, the better you're doing, the more questions you're going to get. And so time is still something that we're sifting through, but it's a very, very similar to a STAR environment.
Well, I'm very pleased with the results of these tests, especially when we compare it to the state and the district where we're outperforming the average. That's great. That's what we should be doing. As a district, I feel like we have a potential of doing that in all aspects, and I think that we're getting there. That's great. I'm very appreciative of these numbers.
Anybody else? Always encouraging to see growth.
Absolutely.
And not an easy job. I know just the testing factor, just having kids, we got iReady today. I always have to kind of have that talk about, well, and, just go do it so they can measure you. That's all it is, But I think there is probably some technique even in getting the kids ready in a good space just to do it, and not have anxiety over that. So,
if they're embracing the lead concept of self-accountability of learning, then the anxiety should not be there. Principals, supervisors, campus supervisors, did you hear what I just said? I can only speak for my own child going through Jack Elementary, to where they looked forward to these assessments. And it was all because they were accountable for their own learning. So if we're not emphasizing some of the principles of Leader in Me and encouraging that self-accountability of learning that's so important with the principles of learning, Mr. Jones, then I think that's something that we need to make sure we're emphasizing this next school year, so they're not so anxious when they go in there to take that iReady test.
Working through nerves is a part of life. And
That's exactly right.
Their opportunity to do it. So.
We had many leaders, teacher leaders and principals attend Visible Learning yesterday with John Almarode, and one of the pieces of Visible Learning and John Hattie's research is practice testing. And practice testing is not taken for a grade, but can be a significant way to help students learn from mistakes and make sure that they're understanding the concept in a risk-free environment. So we definitely have the resources to do that, but
That's exactly
we
right.
be more intentional.
I do want to emphasize one thing that Mr. Newsom talked about on the computer taking the assessment that is very simple. iReady does have other resources and tools that our teachers, under supervision, the students can actually get on there and do a lot of the work to enhance some of the skill gaps that they may have. So that's why we like the K-8 iReady. We're still looking for that high school resource because one of our things is, how do you know? You can't just wait to take the STAR test to see if you're doing very well. That's kind of what we have in our high schools right now. It's just kind of left up to the old school. Let's just take the test at the end of the year. But these things that are happening and working for us in our K through 8s, the how do you know is very important. And iReady is a good tool for that.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate the data. Okay, return of the shack. We have an annual report.
Director of Health Services, Rachel Barber, will now present the Return of the Shack report
Oh, yeah.
that we annually provide.
Good
Pump up the word.
afternoon, President Washington, Board, and Dr. Crawford. So the Shack this year, we went into the year and we did a lot of things trying to revamp the Shack. We started with early communications with our communication team, sending out communications district-wide starting in July and August to all of the parents by email, trying to get a lot more participation. We had parents going to the PTA council meetings and things, and we even changed our location of our meetings to the CTC instead of St. Louis, where we were previously holding, and had morning meetings to try to bring more participation. That did not prove a lot of more participation, but we did have a handful of parents that came continuously to all 4 meetings that we did hold. Our mission for Shack is always to develop an awareness and commitment to the safe and healthy lifestyle through the Tyler ISD community always. We did elect new officers this year. We had one that stayed on, but then we had one that her child did graduate, so she stepped down. Catherine Keffler stayed on as a co-chair, and then Chantel Jackson was elected, and then we had a new secretary elected this year, Barbie Clay. So through our 4 meetings, we ended up, because of our participation levels, our first meeting, we discussed goals and things that they really wanted to do for those meetings, and they brainstormed. Like I said, they went to the PTA council meetings and tried to get parents to participate. They came up with a lot of ideas that they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to go to a lot of the fun runs and things at the different schools. But what we ended up doing was having Lori Anderson. She presented for the trust-based relational intervention at the first meeting, and that was really good, along with doing our brainstorming and electing our new officers. In November, Kristen Parker was our physical health and nutritional coordinator for our staff, but she also sent out newsletters monthly to all of our staff, and then she worked with our Shack to help create a community connections newsletter. The Shack was supposed to send in ideas that they wanted to do to include in that newsletter, and they sent a few ideas, and we got some things, and we were able to send out one newsletter to parents in the early part of the year. In February, we had Tanya Waite from Esteem come and do one presentation on emotional resilience and cyberbullying, and we did have a lot of community partners show up at that meeting with a few parents that came to that one. And then that's when we started talking about the future of our Shack and where we were really going, because we aren't getting a lot of participation from our parents, and we were having maybe 2 parents show up at that, but we have a lot of staff. And while staff that are there are also parents, we really want parent participation, and we were reaching out but not getting them. So at our last meeting, we discussed where that future goes, and so now we are in the discussions of changing our District of Innovation plan and putting in an amendment there. And so we will be meeting here next week to amend our District of Innovation plan and see where we're going to go with our Shack. That can look like many different things. I've looked at lots of different plans from school districts all over Texas. Some of them have their Shack committees still in place where they meet twice a year, so that it's not cumbersome on the Shack committee to have to meet the 4 times a year. But a lot of them utilize their District of Innovation committee itself as their Shack to meet whenever they need to do things like curriculum adoptions and things, or they use their PTA council, because those are the parents that are really involved in their schools. And I really think that that's the direction that we want to go, because those are the parents that we really lean on, and those are the ones that came to all of the curriculum adoption meetings in the first place, and those are the ones that we went to whenever we were looking to do things.
Very good.
And that's what I have for you
Comments or
today.
questions regarding the shack?
I think localizing it on the DOI plan as approved by the board to give us direction on stuff is something that we're going to be looking for as well, as opposed to this general requirement that, you know, a lot of good things come out of statute, well-intentioned things, but it does provide an extra burden on us trying to spin our wheels to go chase people to be a part of these committees. We can advertise and send emails out and put it on social media, ask the PTAs, go to principals, say, give us some people, but getting them to show up at those meetings, people are busy. So in saying that, you know, we've had some initiatives here, talking about our vaping issues that we've had, some other social emotional issues that we've had with kids on self-harm, a lot of things that our Safety ISD committee works on. Those can be rolled into SHAC, and a lot of these boxes can be checked, and y'all can get those reports at the local level instead of us having to go through the bureaucratic process just because they invented this thing a couple to 3 legislative sessions ago, 10 years ago. So that's where Ms. Barber, in July, Fox, we have a pending nuptial coming, can certainly use some relief as far as her trying to spin her wheels, and she can get to the work of serving our campuses and their nursing departments to keep our kids healthy, as opposed to this administrative rigmarole that she's having to conduct because somebody said to. So we'll be bringing that to y'all along with some other stuff we'll talk about in executive session.
Well, I'm all about efficiencies and rolling it into maybe something that's already ongoing as opposed to burdening.
Yeah, suggestion in regards to it, because, Health Advisory Committee, I was in healthcare for a long time. I never realized that we had this within our district. If your nurses can reach out to some of their constituent nurses, therapists, et cetera, I think that you may get a better representation from the community, because I think they're concerned. I think they may not know the role, and not being aware of it myself. And I think that's something that they can reach out to some of their colleagues by using some of the nurses within the district to talk to some of their colleagues about this particular committee. We possibly can pull in more people, along with the suggestion of the PTAs.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Appreciate the SHAC report.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a Tyler ISD Foundation annual report. This is as far as set patiently awaiting her turn.
I just think you guys want me to hear all those wonderful things,
Yes.
right? Thank you to the Board of Trustees, Dr. Crawford, Superintendent, for having us. I always enjoy getting to come and tell you about what the foundation is doing. We're not just the big check brigade that goes around, but kinda. So we'll get started here. So our mission work is pretty simple. We seek funds and we grant those funds in meaningful ways and impactful ways within Tyler ISD. We do that through individual donors, corporate sponsors, employee giving campaign, grant writing, endowment funds, and special event campaigns. And we continue to make it a priority to kind of diversify that. And then we give those funds out in many different ways that you see throughout the year through our district events and programs, scholarships, our Night of Shining Stars, professional development grants, emergency grants, and probably what we're most known for is Grants for Great Ideas. To date, because our fiscal year runs from September to August, so this is as of June 1st. Our campaign, we have raised a little over $360,000. And again, making a focus to kind of diversify how we rally our community to seek those funds and our efforts. We have been so excited to see an increase in our corporate donors. Throughout the year of 29%, we have increased our scholarship giving by $25,000. This year, we actually gave out the largest amount of scholarship funds in a single year in our entire history. So we're very excited about that and continuing to see some community partners come alongside us and establish scholarships that are specifically for Tyler ISD students only. So our seniors not having to compete against other community students for those funds. We have continued to establish our annual donor group, our Sustainers Club, and with that has brought in an increase of about 5% in individual donors. We hosted our first annual new teacher luncheon and excited to do that again this summer, our second annual gala, and our third annual golf tournament. To date, we have gifted a little over $162,000 this past school year to Tyler ISD, and that is continued to grow as we have some exciting things coming this summer in gifts with partners, but that has been allocated, as you see here, a little over $2,000 for professional development. We've had no emergency grants, so just professional development grants this year. District events and Night of Shining Stars, so supporting things like convocation and other events throughout the year. Scholarships, like I said, largest dollar amount and number of scholarships that we have ever given out in a single year. So we awarded $65,000, and super excited to say that all of those students who were awarded has actually claimed, submitted their college information. We're not going to have like a remaining balance because they decided not to go. So excited about that. Tyler ISD appreciation and support. We've given a little under $6,000 there, and then we have awarded, as of yet, there's more to come, but almost $80,000 in classroom grants impacting this year. So to just kind of expound on that a little bit, that Grants for Great Ideas was 26 Grants for Great Ideas across 16 campuses for a little almost $80,000, and based off the reports that came in, impacting a little more than 7,500 students. Awarded 3 professional grants and 1 special campus grant, which that was the one you'll see in the middle, through Grants for Great Ideas, where we gave Ramey almost $12,000 to update their cafetorium, I believe that's how they, yeah, cafetorium. So excited to see some more productions over there. We welcomed a little over 300 new teachers this past summer and getting ready to do the same for new teacher luncheon, and gifted more than $2,500 to those very new teachers to help them set up their classrooms, like Mr. Harbor said earlier, so they have a theme and it's decorated. We awarded 29 scholarships for $65,000, celebrated 42 graduating seniors and 29 distinguished educators. One in particular, we celebrated 7 times on stage that night, so that was fun. And then, of course, we continue to advocate and support district and events. A financial look over the past 5 years. Here just continues to show, we always like to show this report just to show the continued growth that we are doing and the efforts we're making. At the top with our assets, as you can see, we are keeping focused on raising funds, putting them in investments and in our endowment so that we can have sustainable growth to continue to support the district for many years to come. Also just showing as we go down just some of the equity that we have there. A lot of our restricted are unrestricted. As you saw in the gifts that we give out, we don't carry a lot. We want to get it in, put it out right back into the school district, but really focusing on those restricted funds is a lot of our endowments, new scholarship establishments, and endowments that we are setting up to keep those coming. And just sustaining our efforts. And then kind of what we've been putting out, as we saw, almost $163,000 this past year, and then our salary, benefits, and expenses of what we do. So our impact to date, and I am going to be so excited when we can push that number to 4 million. But since our creation in 1990, we have gifted more than $3.8 million to Tyler ISD, and hopefully we'll continue to be able to do that for a long time. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Just a comment here. kind of watched this over the last 10 years, Sonny, and there were some times when we didn't even have an executive director because didn't have the funds to do it. We were kind of circling the drain. So, not the district, but the foundation, which is
Yes.
a partner of ours, it shares our name. And so that was certainly something that was really concerning to the superintendent and the board. So congratulations on the healthiness of the foundation at this point. And we're looking forward to what else you can do. And, you know, I can't wait for you to tip that number over to 4 million. The guy that shares the name of this conference room, this boardroom, his vision back in 1990, Dr. Davidson, or around that time, to actually bring this endeavor forward was forward thinking at that time. And
Yes, it
there's-
was.
Every school district in the state, I think, has a foundation, but thanks to Dr. Davidson's visionary leadership for that, I think we're reaping the benefits of that, and you've done a good job.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
We
thank you.
appreciate you. Okay, we do have a couple of action items, which are, one, to consider the approval of the Head Start program information report for 2023 and 2024. Any,
I move we approve the report.
thank you. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. And then we have the approval of renovations to the A.T. Stewart Complex.
Just a little background of that. Mr. Loper's in the back of the room, but this was some of the flooring that we needed to replace. Is that correct, Mr. Loper? Flooring and ceiling with asbestos. We had abatement, and then we had to come back in and refurbish what we had taken out. As we plan for the master plan, administrative, removing, right-sizing our district and having not so many facilities to take care of, right, Mr. Loper? Okay, good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on that item.
Motion to approve the renovations to Stewart.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We do have some more executive session that we need to handle. And before adjourning after that, happy birthday, Mr. Martinez.
The resident GT student on the board.